Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on creating a seamless digital experience. Thank you all for attending. Just before I hand over to Niall, I wanted to make you aware that we're going to run a short Q&A session. So please ask any questions in the Q&A tab at the bottom, and we will do our best to answer them when Niall is finished. Niall says that the session should take around 20 to 30 minutes. So with no further ado, let me introduce you to Niall, who is the head of delivery here at IndieSpring, and who has kindly volunteered to run this session today. Niall, over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Dave. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Like Dave said, we're going to talk through creating a seamless digital experience today. We're going to come at that from two angles. A lot of people on this call today will have already gone through this process and might be experiencing some difficulties. We'll have some tips, tricks, and discussions around how you can kind of make that a better experience for your customers. And then there will be people here on this webinar that also have just never gone down this process, don't really know where to start, don't know what to think about. So we'll kind of cover that as well. Just to start, what I can say is that we're moving more and more away from a digital experience being a nice to have and more into it's now a necessity in our day and age. The studies have shown that our attention spans are getting shorter. An Oxford study in the year 2000 concluded that the average human attention span is 12 seconds. That is now increased in the year 2020 to 8 seconds. The technology that we as customers or as users have is evolving at a substantial rate, and everything is just getting quicker and quicker. Your customers have now more channels to voice their questions, but more importantly, to realistically voice their concerns and aggravations. So giving them that seamless digital experience is absolutely paramount to your business and should be an absolute focus as you continue to develop your industry. A bit about what we're going to talk today. Again, what is a seamless digital experience and why does it matter? We'll be going through that. Some common mistakes that are easy to avoid if you're just getting into the start of your experience or your project. An overview of the common avenues that you can go down for your experience, what support for those avenues. Obviously, each avenue will require a little bit different support. Managing the expectations, but your expectations as well as your customers or your clients' expectations. They can be two very different things, and if they're not managed properly, there's no point in going for a seamless digital experience. You'll just not hit the mark. And just some examples of web versus apps and how to fix the common mistakes. So first, like I said, a good place to start. What is a seamless digital experience? Well, if you take the seamless out for a second, a digital experience is the way a customer interacts with the brand's digital channels, may that be a mobile device or an online experience or on a website. And it's only possible because of those digital technologies. You then have part of that as the customer experience, and the customer experience is the entire experience that the customer has with the brand, regardless of what it's on. So that includes their interactions. It can be people interactions. It could be digital interactions. It could be their emotions, perceptions, regardless of that media or channel. You smoosh these together a little bit, you'll get yourself a seamless digital experience, and that implies providing a fast, responsive, and frictionless experience for customers. So why does it matter? You may already have a variety of digital products and services for your customers to engage with, from an online tool to a social media channel or even a voice-activated application on device. Creating a seamless digital experience is about bringing each of these touch points together, managing them as a full cycle solution. Customers should be able to jump from one channel to the next and expect the exact same level of consistency and service. A great example is one you see here, Amazon. I use Amazon probably almost every day, even more so in lockdown, definitely. And what I've found is how seamless their experience is between whatever device I'm on. I can add something to my basket here, which you can see on my desktop. And if I have to nip out or anything like that, I can pull up my app and straight away, the same product is in my basket and it's ready to go. I don't have to go find it again. Don't have to go add it to my basket again. It's seamless. It's very, very, very satisfactory. Netflix, another great example. When watching a film, you can pick up exactly where you left off. So at the minute, I watch a lot of Netflix shows on the way into work on the train. And I know whenever I come home, if I've got 10, 15 minutes left, I just pick it up on my tablet or on my computer, and it's exactly where I'm left off. Imagine we were back in the days of VCRs or even just recent DVDs, where you had to fast forward or skip forward to find out where you left off. It just wouldn't be as seamless, and customers wouldn't be as glued to Netflix as they are. But those customers don't think of those experiences as channel specific or digital or non-digital. It's just an expectation that the same level of service is maintained, and rather than a digital experience being a differentiator, it's more likely the seamless experience is the necessity. So if you take box office tickets, for example, there are plenty of box offices out there that you can walk up to physically and buy a ticket for a show or a game, whatever it may be. You will leave your email address, and 9 times out of 10, you'll get a QR code or a ticket that goes to your email address that you can use on your phone. That isn't a full digital experience, but it is seamless. And that's what the customer wants, is the second half, that seamless experience. They don't have to go and print out tickets or go back to the box office or anything like that. They just want to there and then. The more seamless it is, the more likely users are to engage more and spend more. Once you've built a habit that they're comfortable with and understand, you create lifelong customers. And provided you can continue to improve your experiences through online insurance or ongoing insurance, or maintenance, these customers will just keep your revenue stream going. Repeat customers are the key to any business, and this is why I myself personally keep going back to Amazon and keep going back to Netflix. They're the best in their industries. If you want to compare something that's not so great in the streaming industry, you only have to look as far as Disney Plus. They right now it's a great platform, but there are certain apps where you can't fast forward or skip forward or get back to the menus as quite as easily as you can on Netflix, which I've seen reviews online that kind of leave customers upset, essentially. Common mistakes that are easy to avoid. There's one that I'm going to talk through and talk you guys to death to today, and it's apps versus websites. It's the biggest issue that we see at IndieSpring and a lot of agencies that I collaborate with. Is people come in looking for one or the other because they think it's cool or they think it's what they need without any evidence at all. We'll talk more about this later, how we kind of drill down into this mind frame. But if you could leave with anything today, it is you don't need an app because it's cool. You only need an app if you can use what an app provides. Again, common mistakes are doing your research. It's astounding how many people come to me as head delivery as I start to build a picture of their application, and they haven't actually done their competitor research. It does sound really obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people come to us and they don't realize what's already existed in their marketplace, and they'd either be copying it or they wouldn't be enhancing it. And then obviously speed. I talked earlier at the start, one of the first things I said was technology is so fast these days and people want to race to get their products out there. But trust me, it's much better walking slower, making sure everything's far better, built the way you want it, than rushing it out there. If you need to get something to the market fast, there are better ways than rushing through a project. But there's 3 key areas that I want you guys to focus on here today. First one being knowing your audience. So what's your service providing? What are you giving to them? Is it a one and done? If it's a one and done, then why are you going down the app route? Why are you spending all the money and time and effort to build an application that's just going to be used once by a user? You are much better going down a long-term marketing campaign or a website that just does exactly what it says in the tin. Apps are there to be enhanced and continue developed on. They're not there for a one and done. And that leads me on to knowing your service. So what is it that you're trying to achieve? Services for the sake of it don't create a great experience. Are you trying to speed something up? Are you trying to change it, improve it with your digital product? And more importantly, what's the benefit again to your users? You can't just turn around and say, okay, we've got a website. We now want to transition that into an app, because that's not how it works. Apps and websites are completely different functionality, and it will not be a success. Knowing your avenue, we will go into a lot of detail about this, but the biggest mistake is users wanting an app because it's cool. I can't stress it enough. Apps should only come into play if you can start using the features and the technology that mobile devices offer, such as notifications and direct contact. Otherwise, you really don't need one. At Indie Spring, we will do a discovery process with all of our clients, whether they come in with an existing product or not. And no matter how big or small the project is, there is a discovery process that ends with a deep dive into what the client is trying to do, their audience, their metrics for success, budgets, how they think they'd make money, right into functional specifications, user testing, and technical specifications. That allows us to build a picture of the journey that you want to go on, and it essentially allows us to pick out the most important points to build a seamless experience for our clients. So the digital avenues, there's a few digital avenues, 3 main ones that we'll all know of. Ultimately, what you select can be a defining factor in how successful your seamless experience will be. So maybe ask yourself questions like such as, are you just looking to deliver excellent user interactions across devices? Are you looking to make an experience that's never ending? Are you trying to provide a consistent user experience across channels? Are you just trying to make something convenient and easy for users? Or are you trying to make it more personalized for users? Those sorts of questions that we ask our clients in our discovery come out with some really great insights. And we have in the past had clients come in dead set on an application build, and they've come out with a website, and they've been all the more successful for it. So the 3 digital avenues here are obviously website, a progressive web app, and a mobile app. Now I'll go through each one of these, but evaluating that digital avenue should be the first step to a seamless journey. Even before you come to an agency, evaluating it and knowing what you think you need, they should then be able to help you enhance that and maybe steer you in the right direction. So we'll start with the website. Everyone knows what a website is. A website's much easier, much quicker to build, much easier to deploy, and much easier to maintain. If you're improving your service or just making it easier for your users, but you don't really need to interact with them, then a website is realistically the way to go. Now, in this day and age, we can't just build a website. It has to be some sort of responsive website. A lot of users out there will look at your website regardless on a mobile device, and Google themselves are actually de-ranking non-responsive websites. So it's gone from nice to have to a necessity. What I mean by de-ranking there is no matter how good your search engine optimization is or your SEO, you will fall down the pages of Google if they know that it's not optimized for mobile. That's the way it is. So you've got a website. On the other end of the spectrum is an app. An app build allows you to effectively use aspects of your users' physical devices to enhance your impact for users. It's a great option for a business with a well-established marketing teams to use things like push notifications and make it really, really personal. They do have a high barrier of entry for users. So a user to get an app will have to go to the App Store, search for it, download it. In a lot of cases, we'll have to do some sort of sign up. But once you get to that point, once you're signed up in the app, it's highly beneficial. Their phones these days can use Touch ID or Face ID to make signups much quicker, much easier. And apps just make future engagement easier, like payments. Apple Pay is starting to make its way onto Mac devices, and Google Pay is starting to make its way on their devices as well. So it's all becoming a bit more seamless. If you don't think you need a website, but you need something a bit more, and you don't quite need all the functionality of an application, there is something that's in the middle, and that's a progressive web app. A progressive web app is not the same as a mobile responsive website. So the key part of a progressive web app is it allows you to use native features on a mobile device, like offline support, push messages, that you don't get on a website. You do get an app, but the progressive side is much quicker to get to market. There are so many examples out there of progressive web apps done well, and companies that have kind of taken this approach and gone through all 3 of these, decided what they needed to do, and built a seamless experience. A great example of that is Starbucks. Now, you'll see here, this is the Starbucks website, their actual website, www.starbucks.co.uk. You cannot order a drink on here. If you click order now, you'll get pushed to Deliveroo. If you click go ahead with the app, you'll obviously be sent to the relevant app store. There's no way to order on this website. You can sign in, find a store, buy gift cards, etc. But they want to keep away the main functionality, which is buying. Now, they also have two other methods. They have a PWA and they have an application. Now, I'm going to take you through those in a second so you can see the difference between the progressive web app and the application. But the key point here is Starbucks sat down, they pulled their key part of offering, being their buying business, and put it on a progressive web app, built that first, and then decided to work on the application after that. So if you look at this video, you will see on both sides of the screen here is the progressive web app, so app.starbucks.com. On the right is obviously my Mac desktop, and on the left is my iPhone. The key point here is that it looks like more responsive on the iPhone. It adapts to the iPhone, but I can do the same thing. I can go through the menu. I can choose a hot drink, that I want. I'm going to get a hot cappuccino here today, and I can go ahead and buy it. So that is the key offering of Starbucks, isn't it? We want to go and buy a coffee. Not a lot of people want to get rewards. I don't care personally for rewards, so I can just go to this and buy them coffee. Now, the point that I was trying to get across about a progressive web app is mainly on, you'll see here on the left-hand side, you can add these to your home screen. Think of it like a bookmark, but it's not a bookmark. So I can go into the progressive web app on my phone, add it to my home screen, call it what I want. So it'll be Starbucks PWA in this case. And once I save that, that is now a direct link on my home screen. And the difference here between just having a bookmark on a website and using a PWA is the PWA now allows Starbucks to contact me through that. It won't be as personalized as you would have with mobile, but it gets the job done as far as Starbucks are concerned. Now, they then have the third option, which is the app. The app combines the website and the PWA into one experience. Now, if I want to go and get a coffee in the app, I can. It's much easier. It'll allow me to get notifications personalized from Starbucks. It'll find out my location. It will suggest coffees for me to buy. It will learn what I do buy and when I buy it. And that's the benefits of the app. But if you take that whole process for Starbucks, they first had a website. They then built a PWA so the customers could do what the customers want, which is buy coffees. And then they merged that into the app. The app is the end product that the customers are familiar with, how to buy coffees and how to get rewards. And it's just a seamless experience the whole way through. Now, not everyone has a seamless experience. And it's big companies, it's not little companies. Vitality Health, for example, probably it's probably not something that they meant to do, but they have an awful experience when it comes to unlocking rewards on their app. So I had a friend recently who was chatting to me about they wanted to pick cinema seats, and to do it on the Vitality app, they had to download Vitality, log in, unlock the reward code, activate the ticket for a unique code, download the cinema app, pick the seats, go back to Vitality, copy the code and paste it into the Odeon app. That was 9 steps for those of you who are counting. It shouldn't take 9 steps to book a cinema seat. There are much better options out there. And now Vitality, like I say, didn't mean to do this, but when people think of a seamless experience, so if we take that Starbucks, it was very visual. It looks great on all 3 devices, but on the back end side of things, there's a lot of databases, there's a lot of APIs that are talking to each other, and that's what a lot of people do not think about. And Vitality, to be honest, it looks like they haven't. There's a lot of systems that need to talk about it, talk to each other, communicate with each other, send data. And while you're concentrating on making a good looking product for your customers that's seamless, you also need to keep in the back of your mind that a lot of the work actually goes in the back end, the back end developers. And if that fails, then your whole product fails. So that's one thing I need you to keep in mind in today. But it's not just our industry that has done a good job with seamless experiences. You take 2 of the biggest companies in the world, in Sony and Microsoft. They've just released, well, not just released, last year, they released PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, respectively. a key offering that both of them had that the previous generations didn't was backwards compatibility. And that bridges a gap for gamers that want to get the new consoles but don't want to lose all their data. Now, I personally I suffered that with the PlayStation 4 and didn't suffer it with the PlayStation 5. But I can tell you the amount of back-end systems that are talking to each other for that seamless experience to work are extraordinary. So we talked about the 3 digital avenues: website, progressive web app, and app. Now, it's not just one and done for either of these, but there's a lot of support required for an app versus a website. And we'll just talk through that now. So if you take a website, they need very little support in terms of upgrades. If your website is delivering to the point of what you built it to do, i.e. Starbucks, people can log in and see rewards, you could get away with maybe 1 day of support a month. And that's just for maintenance of a site, So a lot of, obviously, websites, you can go to Google Chrome or you can use Safari, you can use Firefox, it doesn't really matter. They are what's called evergreen browsers, which means they're constantly updating no matter what. But these updates are so minor that they will very rarely break your website. Obviously, if you've gone down an MVP route, which we'll talk about in a second, you can enhance this website for your customers based on the analytics that you've got on there. And you can constantly just add small changes to the website quickly and easily and see what works and see what doesn't work. Progressive web apps, a little bit more support required there, if I'm being honest. It's a little bit different. So it's not a responsive website. These are built to work natively on mobile devices, so on mobile browsers. Now, you'll know that Apple and Google love to update the phones. That will affect your progressive web app. So there's some support there to keep your eye on these apps. Now, it's very rarely going to be a break and change that happens to your progressive web app. It's normally visual when they do big changes to their browsers on mobile, but it's always something to keep an eye of on desktop and obviously mobile. Apps, on the other hand, are a completely different beast. They require a lot of planning and a lot of support. You've absolutely no control over the updates that Apple and Google make. And if you leave it untested, your apps can break instantly. For example, iOS 14 and Android 11, so the ones from last year, had a lot of updates around privacy and privacy of users and what you can do, can't do in terms of tracking. That would completely break a lot of apps because a lot of apps work on tracking where clients are, where the users are. So there's a different way to have to go around to build those sorts of apps now. They do release betas. So iOS 15 recently released and Android 12 released yesterday. There was 4 betas for each that we go through and test here at IndieSpring. But ultimately, the day they're released, anything can happen, anything can change. They can make so many changes between those betas. So in terms of support here at IndieSpring, we have a team of QA enthusiasts, let's call them, that will go through 29 devices on iOS and 29 devices on Android. They will test all of our apps when these betas and these final versions are released for any breakages that we will then have to jump on straight away. So, but there is another step to that with apps that a lot of people don't really realize when they're planning. You got to plan in advance for applications. Any change that you make to a website will go on the website instantly. It's very, very quick. Deploy to the server, done. With Apple and Google, you have to submit for review for both apps, both Play Stores, and it could be the same app, but you get rejected for very different reasons. And normally it takes about 5 days for even the smallest changes for Apple or Google to review these changes. That's something that people don't realize. So you can't ever get a quick change out of mobile. So it's always great to plan in advance to have it when you want to decide if you want to release on the 25th of December, you need it to be going to Apple and Google on the 20th of December. So your plan needs to be affected by that. Budget obviously comes into play here as well. You can't choose between a website, a progressive website, or a mobile application if you don't know your budget. Bigger budgets are needed for mobile apps. Like I say, there's a lot of planning to start, there's a lot of planning at the middle, and there's even more planning and maintenance at the end. But websites are much quicker. So talking now about managing expectations, and your expectations, not just your customers, are a huge factor to a seamless digital experience. If you evaluated your audience, your service, and your avenue, you should have a clear goal to managing your expectations. At the end of the day, creating that seamless experience doesn't have to be stressful. If you put the work in at the start, then it should be easy. You should know exactly what you're doing. And the first thing you can look at doing is what's called an MVP. So even Facebook has done this. An MVP is the most viable product. When you're in your discovery phase of your project, what are your customers' pain points? And what do they not really care about, or what would be a nice to have? You take your MVP and that's what you build, whether it's a website or an app. An MVP product is what you take and you get that out. Get that out with analytics, and you can start enhancing that idea of kind of how seamless is your customers find it now, what kind of feedback do they have, and that's something that you use ongoing maintenance for to continue to enhance. But your expectations on ongoing maintenance will also have an effect on how seamless you can make it. So like I've just talked about, do you have time to build an app and then send it to Apple 5 days in advance, or do you need to get it right out there straight away? Do you have time to sit there and maintain constantly with the new OS updates, or do you just have to get something out there? And that leads me on to time to market. And that kind of touches on the 2 points above. Your time to market will ultimately affect whether you go MVP or full product and how much maintenance you have to do at the end. If you're trying to get a product out pretty sharpish, then you do need to look at the MVP route. What is affecting your customers more than anything else, and get that out. And that's something that you continue to develop, similar to what Starbucks done. The website and then an MVP of the PWA, and then the app is the full product at the end of that. So I'd like to talk about kind of common issues and how to fix them. And the best one is when people say, oh, why don't you start again? It is so easy to say that. It's so easy for someone to come to me with something they've tried and me to say, start again. But that's not often the best solution. There's budgetary reasons. If someone's come to you with a product that they don't think is very seamless, or their customers are having problems with, they've spent money and time on that product. There's no doubt about it. So they might not have the budget to start again, or the time to start again. Or even for your clients, if you've promised them a seamless experience and you've not given it, and then you go to start again and let your clients know that, yes, that didn't work, but we promise in 2, 3, 4 months time, this new product is going to launch with an actual better experience, they're unlikely to believe you, if we're being honest. And I think you need to look at your analytics. We spoke earlier about knowing your audience. Analytics is the best place to start. If it's not in your current product right now, whether you're trying to enhance your experience or not actively, you need to have analytics in there, whether it's Google Analytics for websites and PWAs, or whether it's something like Firebase for applications. Get it in, and it's immediately something you will benefit from, your whole business will benefit from. It'll give you the most active parts of your solution, where your customers go to most, what they interact with most, and it gives you a good starting point on where to concentrate your efforts if you have to make any changes. And we also spoke about knowing your service. So what is it you're trying to achieve? Services for the sake of it don't create a great experience. Like I said, having a website and just saying, I want to make it into an app, doesn't create a great experience, because apps can do so much more than websites. You need to really think about it. Are you trying to speed them up, the websites, change or improve it, use offline support? It's something that you really need to think about. And then that I've talked about so much in the last 20 minutes or so, know your avenue, web versus app. I can't stress it enough. You don't need to go out there and make the next big Facebook. Not even Facebook did that. They started with an MVP product, or an accidental product, if we're being honest, in Harvard, and that continually developed. The app came much later. And so some conclusions before we go into Q&A. So I know Dave has some questions there. And I think it's thinking about a few things. What I've just left on is, do you need an app or do you need a website? Take the time to start to think about why you need a seamless experience and how you're going to make that seamless experience. Don't just think about the look and the feel and the nice front end for the customers. think about the systems that have to talk to each other in the back end to make this experience seamless for the customers. I think the way you want to look at it in that sense is just behind the curtain at the Wizard of Oz. If you think about the movie The Wizard of Oz, he's got his big face, he's chatting away, but behind that curtain, he's hitting so many buttons, but it doesn't look like it's a bad experience from the other side. And that's what you have to think about. How will it work? How will it work for your customers? Again, customers are key. You need to think about that audience and how to make that as seamless as possible. So I'd like to thank you for listening to me. Dave is currently managing the QA, so I will take any questions that you guys have asked Dave, and thanks for listening.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Niall. And I loved your Wizard of Oz analogy at the end there. Very entertaining to shoehorn something like that in. We have got a couple of questions, so I'm going to kind of rattle a couple off at you, Niall. Do your best to answer them. You can still ask questions now, or if not, if you email the email address that's shown on screen, or if you have a contact at IndieSpring, contact them with any questions. We'll get back to you personally. But from the questions we've got, Niall, we've got a question here. Progressive web apps seem to have the majority of the functionality of a mobile app. So what are the limitations of using the progressive web app compared to the mobile app, to a mobile app?
Yeah, it depends what you want to do with that progressive web app. Limitations are more around the kind of personalizations that you can have on mobile applications. So you can drill down into locations and where customers are. You can't really do that on progressive web apps. It's much harder to do. Studies have shown as well that with apps, users don't really delete them, even though they aren't using them. They'll just remove them from the home screen. There's updates now that allow you to do that. So it's, for your marketing team, an app is much better in terms of sending out messages to users.
Great, thanks, Niall. Another question is, you've mentioned people saying that you should start again. When and why should you start again on a digital product versus trying to fix what you've already got?
Yeah, and that's really up to the agency. Like I said, it's not something that I like to offer. Someone comes to us with an existing product. I think the first thing you have to do is analyze it. Why is it failing? Is it because of how it's built? Is it because no one's using it? And then how can you enhance it? Now, I know if you give it to one of our developers, they'd say, yeah, let's build it again. Because they want to control everything that happens on this website or this app, but that's often just not the case. I think the only reason I would say rebuild it is if you're in technical debt, which essentially means that the technologies that you've built or chosen don't really reflect what you're trying to do. You have to build a new app or website to achieve that functionality. Otherwise, take the MVP approach and redevelop parts or re-enhance parts of your service slowly rather than starting from scratch from everything.
Great, thanks, Niall. We've just got a couple more just so you're prepared for them. You said know your audience. What if you're bringing a completely new product to market and don't really know what who your audience is, or what they want? What would you recommend them?
Yeah, great question. So there's two things that I could recommend, two very different options. The first one would be a prototype route. For every app or every website, you need to do some sort of designs. Based off that, you can then create what's called a prototype, which is interactive design. So it doesn't really kind of do anything, but you can use that for user testing. So you can send that out to users. They can click around on a website or an app. You can see visually and look at the reports of this user testing that what is most interactive, what do they like, what they don't like. Now, admittedly, that is very expensive. So there is another route, and that is the MVP route. We at IndieSpring, for example, our developers have built an MVP game and released that onto the Apple Store, the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. The key point of that was to launch a game with analytics to see how users behave and what they like, what they don't like, how far they get in that game. Now, that game is very, very easy to build, and it's more about the analytics we've put in there, and that helps us learn our audience. So two ways: MVP or user testing.
Great, thanks, Niall. last question that I've got for you. Do you have any processes on that you would recommend to figure out whether we should be prioritizing iOS versus Android versus web development for our next project?
Wow, great question. Yeah, so in our discovery, we will do that as well. So if we come out of the discovery process that essentially we are going to build, an application, we then look at, well, your users. If you've got current users, what most of their devices on, and we can go ahead and build either a native application. So a native app is two separate apps, one for Android and one for iOS. Now, they are normally with our bigger clients that know exactly kind of what the customers have and which OS to concentrate on. If you come in and you're not quite sure, or if it's a new product, then you can build in cross-platform technologies like React Native or Xamarin that allows you to build one app that you can display on both Android and iOS. Websites, it doesn't matter as much. It's more about that responsiveness and making sure when you're testing it on more than just a browser. You're testing on Android devices and on iOS devices.
Perfect. Thanks, Niall. Well, that's all the questions that we've been asked today. As I said before, if you've got any more questions, please feel free to email us and we'll come back to you personally. Thanks for your time today, Niall, and preparing this webinar for everybody. We'll leave the webinar running for a couple of minutes. So if you need the details on screen, or if you want to ask a question in the Q&A tab, feel free and we'll make sure that we get that answered. But yeah, thanks for everyone for attending, and we hope we see you at our next webinar.
Thanks, guys.